Hook. On November 29, 1970, a university professor and his two young daughters stumbled upon something nightmarish hidden among the rocks of Norway's Isdal Valley. A woman's body burned almost beyond recognition, surrounded by a dozen sleeping pills, an empty liquor bottle, and the faint, sickly scent of gasoline. Every label had been cut from her clothes. Her fingerprints had been sanded down. And when investigators opened her suitcases across town, they found she had used at least 9 fake identities across 4 different countries. 54 years later, no one on Earth knows her name. This is the Isdal Woman. And her story is far stranger than her death. Beat. Background. To understand this mystery, you need to understand where it happened and when. Bergen, Norway, 1970. The Cold War is at its peak. Norway shares an Arctic border with the Soviet Union, and the country is a strategic linchpin for NATO intelligence. Bergen itself, Norway's second largest city, is home to a major naval base. Foreign agents, Soviet, British, American, Israeli, are known to operate throughout Scandinavia, many of them using commercial cover identities, salespeople, tourists, academics. It is a world of dead drops, coded messages, and people who exist on paper but vanish like smoke. Isdalen, the name translates roughly to Ice Valley, is a remote, rocky valley tucked behind Mount Ulriken, just outside Bergen. It's a hiking area, but a desolate one, especially in late November when the Norwegian autumn turns bitter and dark. Locals have another name for this place. They call it Death Valley. According to old folklore, it was once used for burning accused witches. The name would prove grimly prophetic. When Professor Tormod Bones and his daughters found the body that Sunday morning, they initially thought they were looking at a discarded mannequin or perhaps the remains of a campfire. Then they saw the posture, arms raised in what forensic scientists call a pugilistic pose, a reflexive contraction caused by extreme heat. This was no mannequin. This was a woman. And someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to make sure she could never be identified. But here's where it gets strange, because the body in the valley was only the beginning. Beat. Core mystery. Bergen police launched what would become one of Norway's largest criminal investigations. And almost immediately, the case defied logic at every turn. The autopsy revealed that the woman was between 25 and 40 years old, approximately 164 centimeters tall, about 5'4", with brown eyes and dark hair. She had a round face and small ears. Her neck was bruised. In her bloodstream, investigators found roughly 50 to 70 phenymal sleeping pills, a massive, potentially lethal dose, along with traces of carbon monoxide. The official cause of death was listed as a combination of poisoning and smoke inhalation. But here is the detail that haunted investigators. Despite the fire that consumed much of her body, the front of her was significantly more burned than the back. She had been arranged. Positioned. Someone, perhaps the woman herself, perhaps someone else, had poured gasoline and set the fire deliberately. Now, suicide was the initial theory. But ask yourself this: if you were going to end your own life in a remote valley, would you first take the time to remove every single label from every piece of clothing you owned? Would you sand down your own fingerprints? Would you scrub the serial numbers from your belongings? That is not the behavior of someone in despair. That is the behavior of someone hiding, or of someone being hidden. The suitcases were the next bombshell. 2 heavy cases had been checked into the Bergen train station's luggage storage under a false name. Inside, police found clothing from at least 5 different countries: Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Belgium, and Norway. Every label had been meticulously removed. They found wigs, multiple wigs, along with various cosmetics, foreign currency, a pair of non-prescription glasses, and coded notes that appeared to correspond to dates and locations across Europe. When investigators cross-referenced hotel registries, they discovered the woman had checked into hotels across Norway and continental Europe under at least 9 different aliases, using passports that listed nationalities including Belgian, French, and South African. At each hotel, she paid in cash. At each hotel, she lied about who she was. And at each hotel, staff remembered her. She was described as attractive, elegant, well-dressed, and fluent in multiple languages. The witnesses disagreed on which language was her native tongue. Some said German. Some said French. One witness was certain she spoke with an Eastern European accent. The coded notes were partially deciphered years later by Norwegian journalists. They appeared to match her movements, city abbreviations, hotel stay durations, and dates, like a travel itinerary written in simple substitution code. But who writes their own travel diary in code? Intelligence operatives, that's who. Norwegian police circulated her description and a composite sketch through Interpol to over 20 countries. Not a single person came forward to identify her. Think about that for a moment. A woman in the prime of her life, well-traveled, multilingual, clearly educated, and not one human being on the planet reported her missing. No family. No employer. No friend. No lover. Nobody. What would you have done if you were the detective staring at this case file? In 2016 and again in 2018, Norwegian journalists and forensic scientists attempted to crack the case using modern technology. Isotope analysis of her teeth suggested she had grown up in an area near the French-German border, possibly Nuremberg, Germany, or the surrounding region, before moving eastward later in life. DNA analysis narrowed her likely origin to southeastern Europe or the Caucasus region. These findings only deepened the enigma: a woman who may have been born near the Iron Curtain, who traveled relentlessly under false identities, who spoke multiple languages, and who ended up burned in a Norwegian valley during the height of the Cold War. Norwegian intelligence, the predecessor to today's PST, was quietly involved in the original investigation. Decades later, journalists discovered that key pages from the police case file had gone missing. Witnesses who had interacted with the woman reported being visited by men who told them not to discuss what they had seen. One hotel receptionist later stated she was warned to keep quiet. An Italian photographer who had encountered the woman in a Bergen hotel and found her behavior suspicious was never formally interviewed by police, despite coming forward. Someone, it appeared, did not want this case solved. Beat. Unresolved ending. The Isdal Woman was buried in a zinc coffin in Bergen's Molendal Cemetery on February 5, 1971. A Catholic priest performed the ceremony. Police chose Catholic rites based on certain items found in her belongings, though even that is uncertain. Only officers from the Bergen Police Department attended. No mourners. No flowers. No name on the headstone, just a small metal plaque. Over the decades, theories have multiplied. Was she a Mossad agent, operating in a region where Israeli intelligence was known to be active? A Soviet bloc spy whose cover was blown? A courier for one of a dozen intelligence services that prowled Cold War Scandinavia? Or was she something else entirely, a con artist, a fugitive, a woman fleeing an abusive past who constructed an elaborate web of lies simply to survive? In 2017, Norwegian police officially reopened the case. They exhumed DNA samples. They ran advanced forensic genealogy. They published new composite images. And yet, as of today, the Isdal Woman remains unidentified. Every trail leads to a locked door. Every answer raises 3 new questions. Here is what keeps investigators awake at night. In over half a century, across the entire planet, not a single person has ever been confirmed to know who this woman was. Someone erased her, from her clothing, from her luggage, from her fingerprints, from history itself. And whoever did it was either the woman herself, or someone who wanted her to disappear forever? Do you think the truth is still out there, buried in a classified file, locked in someone's memory, waiting? Or was this woman engineered to be a ghost, a person who was never supposed to exist at all? Beat. OUTRO. The Isdal woman lies in her zinc coffin in Bergen, still unnamed, still unclaimed. If you have any information about this case, the Norwegian Police Cold Case Unit is still actively investigating. Drop your theories in the comments below. I read every single one. If this case unsettled you as much as it unsettled me, subscribe to Obscura Files and hit the bell, because the darkest stories are the ones the world tried to forget. Until next time, stay curious. Stay vigilant. And remember, some mysteries don't want to be solved.